Hello and welcome to the Reading Room. I am Kelly Green, and we are continuing on with our reading of An Action a Day Keeps Global Capitalism Away. We ended off on 15, so we'll start right into it with number 16, Giant Checks. This action, presenting a giant check to a worthy recipient, makes a great complement to a corporate aid concert, as we described in action number 15, if you remember from the last show. But it can also be done all on its own. Basically, all you need to do, for instance, is walk into the headquarters of the company you're doing your action against and present them with a check for 1 hour of labor for one of their workers in the third world country where their goods are manufactured. We first did this action for the Gap Incorporated because the Gap had no corporate headquarters in our city. We chose the biggest Gap store. Although that is not the ideal location, most stores have a policy that anything unusual must be reported to head office, so your action will eventually make its way to the intended target. For the Gap, we had a local printer make up a giant check for 11 cents. That amount is what Gap pays its Chinese migrant workers in Russia for sewing clothes. More information on the Gap can be found at globalexchange.org. I will leave that in the links if it's still active. We walked into the Gap store with the check, and a member of our group made a short speech to reporters and Gap customers outlining Gap's sweatshop practices. We also gave out handbills outlining the issues and suggesting ways people could take action. The action went smoothly and the manager took the check, which was never cashed. We have also done this action for politicians. For example, if you're an anti-poverty activist, you might want to challenge your Minister of Social Services to live off an amount equivalent to 1 month of social assistance. If you're a student activist, you might want to challenge your Minister of Education or your university administration to live off 1 month of the student buying allowance on your student loan. The realm of presenting big things to powerful people is endless. You can also issue big invoices. This one is actually cheaper because you don't need to go through the bank, which you do have to do to get a certified check. All you need is a big piece of poster board. You can issue an invoice for the government in question to pay its debts to the environment or for a corporation to pay its environmental fines. Further down the parity line, you can also make up a big certificate of achievement in corporate or political malfeasance, or a big notice of eviction if you are, say, occupying a municipally owned house or space that has gone unused and you want to make a point about evicting the absentee owner, the city. Why giant checks? If you want the media to show up to your event or action, you need a good visual. Giant checks, invoices, and notices are all great ways for you to get your picture in the paper and bring light to the issue you're working on. And giving or demanding money can generally, in some way, be tied to pretty much any issue. This action is also fairly low cost and can be done by anyone from citizens groups to opposition political parties to labor unions. Giant checks get the point across, allow for the 10-second soundbite, and are non-confrontational enough to suit those who are less disposed to getting hauled out of public places or otherwise taunted by passerby. What you need a giant check, giant invoice, or whatever giant thing you are presenting. If you want an actual certified check, it takes about 3 days to order one through the bank, and you'll have to have the money in an account. A larger sum may present a problem. You could talk to people with money, like labor unions or some larger organization, and ask them to have the check issued. On the upside, the likelihood of the check actually being cashed is quite slim. Indeed, if the recipient of the check does cash it, that is worth a press release in itself. Once you have the check, come up with a short soundbite when you present it. It is very important, even if you don't get to present it to the CEO, which is likely to be the case, that you put on a good show. Go through your entire spiel in true dramatic flair. You may want to rehearse beforehand, just to make sure everything goes well. Action number 17, watching TV. Well, this should be easy. It's 3 fun, half risk, and 3 on resources. I got the idea for this action after watching one of my little cousins during a small family reunion. As people spilled food, played cards, and crossed the room to talk to one another, my cousin watched the tube for 8 hours straight. From that event, I came up with the following action. Get a chair, a lazy boy recliner makes a nice effect, and a television set. Set them up in the middle of a busy sidewalk and then sit there pretending to watch the tube. People will pass you on all sides, but all you do is watch, seemingly unconscious of the outside world. On the back of your TV, you can write, "Kill your television," "Turn off your TV and turn on your life," or some other slogan to make your action explicit. Why watching TV? It seems that in many homes, TV has become a popular member of the family. Instead of conversing, playing, or planning the revolution with one another, families spend their time transfixed by images of a reality that doesn't exist. TV has become a combination babysitter, relaxation tool, and favorite pastime. It bombards us with messages of what to buy, how to look, how to act, how to be passive in the face of a medium that is wholly run on advertising revenues. Watching TV in the middle of the sidewalk brings a real-life scenario into an unreal setting, allowing the absurdity of TV addiction to come to the surface. What you need: a comfy chair, a television set, a remote, unless you want to get up and change the channels, but who does that anymore? And a person to sit in the chair. All the person needs to do is pretend to watch TV and block out the rest of the world. A sign is optional. Again, it's a good idea to have 1 or 2 watchers to ensure the television watcher's safety. Good luck and good watching. Okay, so there is said TV action in illustrated form. And for those of you wondering what that is a CRT television. They're boxy and heavy. And does anyone watch TV anymore, or are we just on our computers and our phones? I think we're on our phones. So this action may need to be updated and tweaked a little bit, but you get the idea. Okay, number 18, alarm clock wake up. This action comes from one of the masters of mayhem, Abby Hoffman. Done with a small group of people, it can be carried out anywhere, but schools, offices, or shopping malls are the easiest targets. And for students in a class in university, this action is perfect. Each member of the group takes an alarm clock or some other clock that rings to the chosen venue. The members spread out and sit here and there around the place, and they set their clocks to go off at various times. Eventually, there will be an onslaught of sound and confusion. The people outside the action will not have a real sense of what is going on, but they will all know and recognize the sound of an alarm clock. When your alarm goes off, you might, for instance, pretend that the clock is reminding you to do something, and then you very dramatically go about doing it. Or you can let the clock ring and wait as the other alarms join in, or you can shut your alarm off after a while. The choice is yours. If you perform this action in a university, be aware of your university's regulations regarding disruption of class time. Many universities have some type of code of student conduct prohibiting disruptions, which means that your action could result in negative consequences. To avoid unnecessary trouble, it might be best to choose a cafeteria over a classroom as a location. Alternative action: cell phone wake up. You can use cell phones for this action as well. You just need someone to place calls to the cell phones of everyone in the group. As a society, we are dominated by the clock. At school, bells tell us when to move and when to learn. We look at our watches to tell us where we should be and how long we have to get there. We wake up to the buzzing of clocks, and we plan our days around the constant ticking. This action tries to disrupt that flow of time-boundedness by making it painfully explicit, and by setting off a wave of alarms, we expose the absurdity of time slavery. We also create a disturbance in the functioning of a system based on time. Time is not real. It is a social construct that is relative. That is, it is relative and fluid, save in a capitalist society where all human actions must be monitored to keep production and consumption continuing apace. What you need. You need a bunch of clocks set to ring at various times. Setting them to go off just a few minutes apart works well. You also need a number of people, as many as possible, to work the alarms and spread them out. Although you can do this action alone by just hiding the clocks here and there in the location and letting them go off by themselves. After you set your clocks, sit back and watch out for the craziness to ensue. People hate the sound of bells, yet are controlled by them. And a cute little illustration of an OG alarm clock. I don't know if you can see that in there. I'll zoom in. Action number 19, time for a funeral. This action, as old as the hills, can be used to highlight pretty much any of the decisions made by governments these days, when public policy seems to revolve around cutting back on or privatizing public education, healthcare, and anything else that fills a widespread need or exhibits a social conscience. In post-secondary education, right across the country, tuition has been increasing at unparalleled levels. Due to government underfunding, universities in province after province are moving to differential rates, which means they can increase a single faculty's tuition above and beyond general increases. Deregulation is allowing universities to set their own tuition levels based on market models. This has brought tuition increases as high as 410% in a single year. Education is quickly becoming inaccessible for students from low or middle income backgrounds. In 2003, the University of Alberta sought not only to increase general tuition levels by 6.3%, but also to introduce differential rates for law, medicine, and business, almost doubling those faculties' tuition levels in just 2 years. Students at the university, seeing the change as heralding the death of accessible education in Alberta, decided to hold a funeral in its honor. A group of them built an 8-by-4-foot coffin in a garage at 3 o'clock in the morning. Eulogies were written, pallbearers were found, and songs were written to suit the occasion. Even a chaplain decided to come. It was a small ceremony. The pallbearers carried the coffin to the front of the administration building. Other participants carried burning candles and sang Amazing Grace. Programs were handed out. When the coffin was set down, the chaplain opened the ceremony with a short reading. Tuition-related songs were mournfully sung, and the eulogies were given. At the end, when dust was sprinkled over the coffin, some students dramatically broke down and cried. A tombstone was presented to a member of the university's administration. The entire event lasted only 40 minutes, but will be long remembered. Great little action, indeed. Some of you in Edmonton might remember Funeral for the Forests in 1991, I believe. During a time when the government is going privatization crazy, funerals become an appropriate response to the madness. Why time for a funeral? This action works because it delivers a clear and resounding message, and it is difficult for anyone, and especially the press, to take it out of context. A mock funeral also offers an abundance of different roles for participants, so it's inclusive and allows everyone to use their talents. Activists can hum, sing, make a coffin, give a speech, organize volunteers, or carry a candle. A funeral is one of the most symbolic actions in our society. When you do this action, you're using that symbolism, religious and otherwise, so it is important to show respect for the ceremony. When the government seeks to cut funding or privatize a service, emotions can run high. A funeral action allows people to release their emotions in a positive way. What you need. This action can be done with varying degrees of preparation, depending on time and resources. If you don't have much time, a few candles and some grim-looking people singing sad songs can put on a pretty good show. If you have the time, you can add to the action by introducing a coffin and some crosses, and enlisting the help of friendly clergy. You can make up your own little program outlining the day's events and explaining the issues. You can download format for these programs off the internet. The program becomes a kind of fact sheet for the press and other onlookers, and also adds to the visual component of the action. It's also fun to get people in the community, especially those who are being harmed by the government policy in question, to do eulogies, and you can then give the press the opportunity to interview them. Number 20, die in or sleep in. This is 4 on fun, 2 to 3.5 on risk, depending on location, and 3.5 on resources. This action is especially effective if you have a large number of people, or at least more than 20. I first saw it carried out at a World Petroleum Congress held in Calgary in 1999. I think I talked about that event in my podcast series, Confessions of a Gen Xtivist, True Crime Stories. You can find it in podcasts or playlists on my YouTube channel. This action took place in front of the corporate headquarters of Canada's largest oil company, Talisman Energy, a company with a history of involvement in the Sudan. At the time, Talisman had been implicated in funding the Sudanese government's war against the country's own people in the largely Christian region in the south. As the march against WPC wound its way through the streets of Calgary, it stopped at Talisman's office building. A small affinity group, with an asterisk, that was leading the action, put the word out to the crowd that all we would need to do at a certain point was scream and then lie down on the ground and stay there. To begin, though, the affinity group performed a short play dramatizing Talisman's human rights and environmental abuses. A few actors represented the oil giant, and a larger group took on the part of the people of Sudan. Eventually, the oil reps took out jerry cans labeled oil, filled with tomato juice to represent blood. They doused the people of Sudan in oil. The victims began to scream, were joined in that screaming by the crowd, and soon a sea of people fell to the ground, motionless. The effect was breathtaking. For minutes, no one moved. All the people on the ground just stayed there, motionless. After a while, led by members of the affinity group, everyone got up, the blood was cleaned up, and the march continued. For sleep-ins, the action is the same and the messaging is simple. Placards or signs saying, "This blank is making me tired," are enough to let everyone know what you're doing and why. Sleeping bags and pillows are nice props for this one, but depending on your location, you should be prepared to have them confiscated if the police grow tired. Now just a quick note on the asterisk for affinity group. An affinity group is basically a group of people who go into action together. It is made up of a small number of people, anywhere from about 5 to 20, who form a self-sufficient support system to work on direct action or other projects. As an ACT UP civil disobedience website puts it, feelings of being isolated or alienated from the movement, the crowd, or the world in general can be alleviated through the familiarity and trust which develops when an affinity group works and acts together. So that's a great little bit of advice in these times of resistance. Find your affinity group to be with in the larger movements. So why die-in or sleep-in? Sleep-ins or die-ins deliver clear and effective messages. Watching a large crowd of people scream to the heavens and then collapse to the ground lifeless is an amazing experience. The visuals are fantastic and make the action. This action also takes up space. This is one of the fringe benefits because you basically become a human barricade blockading any entrance or area you want to occupy. The action is a great way of starting a sit-in occupation or a blockade. See actions 51 and 52. Stay tuned for those. The act of sitting conveys only sitting, but being tired or dead communicates something more and shines a new light on the issue you are engaged with. The theatrical nature of a die-in or sleep-in guarantees that there will be public interest. This is sometimes the biggest reward because the people walking by and taking note of the event will be better informed about your issue. If you give out handbills, onlookers may even take action, or better yet, join your group or organization. What you need. This action doesn't require much more than bodies. After you have the people, find a location and sleep die away. A couple of banners and some explanatory material are the only other suggested props other than cans of tomato juice, depending on the issue you're confronting. If appropriate, the blood adds to the visual effect and can be that extra punch you need to get the message across. Remember though, if you use that kind of substance as an added effect, you should also bring along something to clean it up afterwards. If what you use stains the area, you can be charged with destruction of property. All right, we're getting into action number 21, billboard liberation. 3.5 on fun, maximum 5 in the risk department, and 4 in resources. And we would have to say that where are we here? That those are spray cans for the resources, I'm guessing, for the billboard liberation. Billboard liberation is yet another long-standing art. Ever since billboards became an advertising mainstay, littering our visual space, there have also been activists willing to liberate them. There are 3 main tactics in billboard liberating: felling, trashing, and reclaiming. Felling is where you take down the entire structure of a billboard, an action that, for obvious reasons, is best carried out on a secluded rooftop or in the country. Wood is much easier to fell than metal. Important: do not try to fell a billboard without first reading the book Eco Defense, A Field Guide to Monkey Wrenching, **. Felling is an art and requires practice. The Eco Defense Field Guide to Monkey Wrenching * merely says by Dave Foreman and Bill Haywood, 3rd edition, Abzug Press, 1993. I'll see if I can find a link. Reclamation is the most effective method of billboard liberation after felling, which is much higher risk. All your group needs is spray paint and a catchy slogan. For instance, original billboard, Molson ad: "He gets the beer, she gets the vase." Reclaimed: He gets the beer, she get the sexist asshole. Original billboard. Skinny woman selling something. Reclaimed. Skinny woman with feed me on her chest. Trashing involves making a billboard completely unreadable. Balloons or light bulbs filled with paint are easy to acquire, can be launched from a distance, and get the job done. The downside is that trashing can be quite messy, so wear clothes you can dispose of quickly and easily. Trashing isn't as effective as reclamation, but it is great for those hard-to-reach billboards, or if you have a paintball gun and want to have some fun. Why billboard liberation? Instead of answering this question myself, I will defer to the experts at the Billboard Liberation Front. Marketing for the people. BillboardLiberation.com. Curious if that link is active. If it is, check the show notes in the description. From BillboardLiberation.com. In the beginning was the ad. The ad was brought to the consumer by the advertiser. Desire, self-worth, self-image, ambition, hope, all find their genesis in the ad. Through the ad and the intent of the advertiser, we form our ideas and learn the myths that make us into what we are as people. That this method of self-definition displaced the earlier methods is beyond debate. It is now clear that the ad holds the most esteemed position in our cosmology. Advertising suffuses all corners of our waking lives. It so permeates our consciousness that even our dreams are often indistinguishable from a rapid succession of TV commercials. Different forms of media serve the ad as primary conduits to the people. Entirely new media have been invented solely to streamline the process of bringing the ad to the people. You can switch off, smash, shoot, hack, or in other ways avoid television, computers, and radio. You are not compelled to buy magazines or subscribe to newspapers. You can sick your Rottweiler on door-to-door salesmen. Of all the types of media used to disseminate the ad, there is only one that is entirely inescapable to all but the bedridden, shut-in, or the Thoreauian misanthrope. We speak, of course, of the billboard. For these reasons, the Billboard Liberation Front states emphatically, and for all time herein, that to advertise is to exist. To exist is to advertise. Our ultimate goal is nothing short of a personal and singular billboard for each citizen. Until that glorious day for global communications when every man, woman, and child can scream at or sing to the world in 100-point type from their very own rooftop, until that day we will continue to do all in our power to encourage the masses to use any means possible to commandeer the existing media and to alter it to their own design. What you need. Consult the Eco Defense Guide for details on felling or destruction. In reclamation projects, it is best to go to the site in teams of 4 or 5 with at least 2 watchers, 1 sprayer, and 1 spotter. The spotter ensures the safety of the sprayer, looks for anyone who can see the sprayer, and warns the sprayer of possible dangers. The watchers should both have some form of communication device. Walkie-talkies are cheap and effective. The watchers should be stationed in an area that has good sight lines and offers as much lead time as possible for the sprayer. Dark clothes are preferable for nighttime adventures. If you are daring daytime raiders, the best attire is construction-style outfits, the ones with the flashy vests. Everyone, especially the sprayer, should wear gloves and clothes they can discard after the action. This is one action in which having a car can really come in handy, but if you're reclaiming billboards in busy urban areas, you may well be better off using bikes for your getaway. A white van with a ladder is best for daytime artists. Other than that, you need spray paint, a good nozzle, and running shoes. And we have this lovely little bit of artwork. There we go. Okay. We might do 1 or 2 more on this episode of Reading Room with Kelly Green. Number 22, stop sign reclamation. This action is much less risky than billboard reclamation, but can be just as effective. I saw a stop sign reclamation on a city street just after President Bush Jr. invaded Iraq in the spring of 2003. On the bottom of a stop sign, someone had pasted a red and white sticker with the words, George W. Bush. So the message, as a whole, nicely read, Stop George W. Bush. This is an easy, inexpensive action with the added bonus that there are stop signs absolutely everywhere. And you might be able to see this one, Stop Capitalism. I've seen them stop eating meat, stop the war, Stop. Stop. Just stop. All these things we can stop. The greatest strengths of stop sign liberation are its ease and low risk, and that anyone can do it. You can plaster your message all over the place. The simplicity of the messaging also makes it accessible to the public. Stop wearing fur, stop clear cutting, stop sexism. The sky is the limit on this one. What you need. Not much. You can use sticker paper with a message written or printed on it, or ordinary paper with wheat paste, flour, and water to make it stick. I prefer to go with sticker paper, even though it might cost more. Red sticker paper and black writing is best because it blends in with the sign and creates the most aesthetically pleasing image. Sticker paper is also easier to apply. Sometimes using wheat paste can result in an unsightly mess. Sticker paper is also easier to carry around with you, which makes for an easy getaway. Action number 23, out of order. This is 3.5 out of fun, 4 on risk, and 2.5 on resources. Out of order. Many university campuses have monopoly deals with Coke or Pepsi. While you can't do much about your campus having been sold out to the sugar water behemoths, you can mess with their profits. Use self-adhesive sticker labels and a word processing program to create sheets of out-of-order stickers. Then go around campus putting them over the coin slots of the vending machines. It will be a while before anyone figures out that the labels aren't for real, and in the meantime you've messed with the profits of a monopolistic corporation. Why out of order? Many of these monopoly deals were introduced in the mid-90s with little or no public debate. On some campuses, there has been little resistance to so-called single-source beverage deals, even though these deals provide far more benefits to the corporations than they do to the students. Furthermore, cash-strapped public schools are having to cut deals with soda pop multinationals just to buy textbooks and materials. This action makes it clear that resistance to this agenda does exist, and it offers you an easy and inexpensive way of expressing that resistance. What you need. Sticker paper, someone who knows how to make labels, and a computer and printer. 2 people are best for the actual action of slapping on the stickers, one to act as a cover and the other to do the sticking. Make sure there are no security cameras around, and off you go. There you go, number 23, out of order. All kinds of fun with stickers and different actions, liberating billboards, die-ins and sleep-ins, the alarm clock wake-up. Sky's the limit. Use your imagination. Whichever action that you are choosing to participate in, do it safely, do it with love, do it peacefully, have an affinity group who's got your back, and that you can share the joys and the wins and the losses all together. So thanks for tuning in to An Activist Today Keeps Global Capitalism Away, written by Mike Hudema. Oh, I did want to mention, somebody had brought this to my attention after I'd posted the last show. The introduction of this book was written by Mike Hudema and Shannon Phillips, and I had forgotten that Shannon Phillips is a former MLA. So after helping write the introduction to this book, she was elected in 2015, 2019, and 2023 general elections. So she resigns as an MLA in 2024. I think she was getting harassed, possibly followed around by the police, maybe? Okay, so in July 2020, 2 members of the Lethbridge Police Service were demoted for inappropriately using their police jobs in 2017 to follow and photograph Phillips, then the Ministry of Environment and Parks of Alberta. Phillips was in the process of meeting with stakeholders in the lead up to the formation of Castle Provincial Park, where the 2 officers had an interest in off-road vehicle driving. So there you go. There's some heavy controversy regarding her. She's recently retired, but germane to this book, on June 24th, 2016, the Wild Rose Party said during question period that Phillips' editorial work for a 2004 book by Greenpeace activist Mike Hudema entitled An Action Today Keeps Global Capitalism Away would make the business and industrial sectors even more jittery about the agenda of the new NDP government. Phillips, who wrote the foreword and did some of the copyediting, said she did not contribute to the content. That's kind of cool. So shout out to Shannon Phillips, shout out to Mike Hudema, and Rob Butts, thank you for bringing that to my attention in the comment section on one of the socials, I think. Anyways, I'm Kelly Green. This is Reading Room on February the 22nd, 2025. Come back again when we get into actions 24 through 30. Okay, see you later.